Los objetivos fueron un teatro, al menos 2 restaurantes y el Estadio de Francia situado al norte de París. Según la Fiscalía, 8 atacantes fueron abatidos y 7 de ellos portaban bombas adheridas a sus cuerpos. La serie de atentados terroristas en la capital francesa deja al menos 153 víctimas, 112 de ellas en el Teatro Bataclan, donde se celebraba un concierto. Allí, y de acuerdo con varios testigos, los terroristas dispararon indiscriminadamente contra los asistentes hasta que las unidades antimotines de la policía los neutralizaron. El presidente François Hollande declaró el estado de emergencia en toda Francia y ordenó el cierre de las fronteras. Seguimos atentos al desarrollo de esta noticia. Soy Michael Roa News en CNN.
Welcome back to our breaking news coverage. The aftermath of the terror attacks that left Paris and that nation in shock and disbelief. Seemingly coordinated attacks that happened Friday night, leaving at least 153 people dead, a number that we are told is likely to rise. The attackers ruthlessly sought out soft targets, sports stadiums, a busy concert venue, restaurants and bars.
Now, the French president himself among those in attendance at one of the target sites has convened his Defense Council to talk over how to respond to the attacks. French officials say all the attackers are dead, but it's still not clear how many were there in total. Now, one witness at the epicenter of the terror attack spoke to Radio France about the moment the gunman entered the Bataclan concert hall.
He says the shooter came in firing assault rifles and shouting Allah Akbar, which is Arabic for God is great. Listen.
En plein concert, il y a des mecs qui sont arrivés, ils ont commencé à tirer au niveau de l'entrée et en fait ils ont tiré en plein dans la foule en criant à la voix de barre avec des fusils à pompe, je crois, parce que les gens les entendaient charger. Et du coup après tout le monde le concert s'est arrêté, tout le monde s'est couché à terre et continue à tirer sur les gens.
Just heartbreaking. You can definitely hear the fear in his voice there. Well, with authorities still at this time unsure if there are more attackers at large, the country has stepped up security from its national borders to its ground presence inside the capital. Will Geddes is the managing director of International Corporate Protection, a private security firm. He is joining us now from London. Great to have you on the program. As we mentioned, the Defense Council is meeting with President Hollande right now, and this is a country that's under a state of emergency. There's a curfew that's been implemented, which is quite extraordinary, along with the fact that the borders in France have been closed. I'm just curious to know what your take might be on what is being discussed right now during this Defense Council meeting, and what you think this quote-unquote ruthless response might be by France.
Well, certainly in terms of French, the French position, I think they're going to be trying to gather as much intelligence as they possibly can to try and determine, obviously, whether there were any indicators of this attack materializing, certainly in terms of its planning or any advanced chatter that they may have been able to intercept, certainly through social media or through other means of communications. This seems to have taken them by surprise. I think François Hollande's reactions by putting the country into a state of emergency, talking about closing borders, restricting travel, would say that they are concerned that there are other potential simultaneous attacks that could materialize elsewhere in France, not just in Paris alone. So it's very concerning, and no doubt their counterparts in the UK, I know David Cameron is going to be holding a COBRA meeting today, and again, President Obama, all of them will be getting together to try and share as much intelligence as they can to determine what's going on.
I mean, as you say, this is an attack that has caught a lot of people by surprise, but, given that this is a country that has gone through, some major terror attacks just this year, including Charlie Hebdo, and of course you can't forget the thwarted attack on that French train that was headed to Paris this summer. I mean, do you think France had not been expecting this kind of possible terror attack?
Well, no, I think they've been preparing for it, and certainly I know from a number of the government agencies and a number of the units that I have contacts with them, that they've been working on what we call the Roaring Terrorist Plan, which is a plan basically to deal with exactly these types of situations. Now, it's in many respects more a response plan than it is necessarily a prevention plan. It's very, very difficult to prevent these types of situations, and although there's been no doubt some considerable planning behind this attack last night, these operations can certainly be implemented very, very quickly by the terrorists. All they need to do is designate their targets, have the suitable equipment, and this is again where the forensic investigation right now is going to be interesting, looking at the signatures of the construction of the suicide vests, looking at the weapons and where they could have potentially originated. Again, it's really interesting in terms of certainly looking at how certainly the French are responding to this in a far more, or slightly, a far better way in some respect than they did to Charlie Hebdo, because I don't think they were really that prepared for that.
Yeah, and so on that note, do you think that this is going to be a game changer for France when it comes to the way the country deals with security? I was listening to Jim Bitterman, who's been reporting all day on this, and he suggested that France might turn to some really draconian security measures.
Well, I think we're going to see that across Europe. I think, unfortunately, with a number of different contributing factors, we have obviously this massive migrancy issue here in Europe as well. And I think a lot of European countries, certainly on the continent, are considering, we have a number of factors to bear in mind here. Over and beyond the migrancy, we have this terrorism issue. And the ability to move across from country to country with very little restriction is going to present its own particular issue. So it's going to be interesting to see how this rolls out in France as to whether they decide to actually exclude themselves from the Schengen Agreement and actually close up their borders and start making far more robust and stringent border controls on anybody choosing to visit France.
So you think that that's definitely a possibility, permanently closed borders, despite the Schengen Agreement? I mean, what kind of security measures do you foresee here?
Well, I see potentially then closing them entirely, obviously they can't do, but what they will no doubt perhaps start creating initiatives towards will be certainly making those border points certainly far more robust, and there will be a requirement to actually show evidence of ID and certainly passports to be able to enter France. I think there is concern, certainly with the succession of attacks that France has had in the last year. They realise as they continue to work alongside the United States in targeting ISIS, certainly in the airstrikes, that this problem isn't going to go away anytime soon. This is a problem that's going to continue.
And on that note, because I would imagine a lot of the French people are quite frightened right now, considering the fact that it's unclear if there are more attackers on the loose. You talked about intelligence officials, what they might be doing right now, looking at communications online and some of that chatter. I mean, what do you think intelligence officials are doing right now to, make sure that there are not more attackers out there, or that there are?
Well, the French intelligence agencies are very, very good. They've had a long history of dealing with these issues, and they have some very good capabilities at their resource. They will be looking at certainly all the communications chatter that is going on right now. There were reports, obviously, of ISIS supporters hashtagging Paris in flames, as you know, last night. So they're going to be following up on a lot of different, not only known sources, but also new sources that might be emerging on social media. They're going to be trying to join those dots, see if anybody is actually making any specific reference, obviously, to these attacks with intelligence or information that could be more than just simply passing comment. There will be no doubt an amplification on communications traffic, and that will also be looking retrospectively of what communications traffic there may have been in those particular districts where the attacks materialized, to see whether there was any kind of notification between the cells. And again, this is a very long and lengthy process to obviously analyze.
And just the beginning of a long and lengthy process. Will Getty's Managing Director at the International Corporation for Protection. Great getting your perspective. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well,
The U.S. President Barack Obama, he spoke with the French President Francois Hollande after the attacks.
Yeah, Mr. Obama said the U.S. will give France, our, quote, oldest ally and friend, steadfast, unwavering support.
We stand prepared and ready to provide whatever assistance that the government and the people of France need to respond. France is our oldest ally. The French people have stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States time and again. And we want to be very clear that we stand together with them in the fight against terrorism and extremism. Paris itself represents the timeless values of human progress. those who think that they can terrorize the people of France or the values that they stand for are wrong. The American people draw strength from the French people's commitment to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We were reminded in this time of tragedy that the bonds of liberté and égalité and fraternité are not only values that the French people care so deeply about, but they are values that we share.
There's no doubt what happened there in France has resonated. You know, people are feeling it. You know, in the United States, many other places around the world, this fight against terrorism, and at the same time, you find these cases where the terrorists target these soft targets, kill innocent people. You know, and your heart bleeds for them. You can't help.
Absolutely.
Well, our CNN breaking news coverage continues on the attacks in Paris. Coming up, we take a closer look at the places targeted during these attacks.
Plus, the people of Paris are waking up to devastating headlines of 6 terror attacks in one night. The latest from Paris when we return.
A continuación, nuestros mensajes publicitarios.
A lo largo de los años he tenido la oportunidad de recorrer América Latina. He notado que existe una fuerza interna que genera movimiento, motiva las ideas, el ingenio y transforma los retos en oportunidades. Acompáñame y descubramos juntos cómo estas empresas, las más audaces de la región, triunfan en el mundo de los negocios.
Fuerza en movimiento, el martes, en CNN Dinero, en alianza con Avianca. Más momentos de emoción. Más rescates dramáticos. Más historias de animales locos. Todo lo que está detrás de tus videos favoritos en internet. Más grandes y mejores que nunca. Videos Virales 2. Hoy en CNN. 10 homenajeados, un día para votar y un solo héroe del año. Vota ahora para elegir al héroe de CNN del año en cnnheroes.com. El 13 de diciembre.
Tenemos una lucha contra las mafias que trafican con los seres humanos.
De miedo, escondido, inmigrantes no pueden volver en mi país. No solo es un problema de Melilla ni de España, es un problema europeo.
Muros de Agua en DocuFilms, el 13 de diciembre en CNN. Cada deportista tiene una fascinante historia por descubrir.
¿Cómo invierte su dinero?
Y Elizabeth Pérez lo tiene todo para hacerlo.
¿Te ponen tickets?
Porque lo que pasa fuera de la cancha es tan importante como lo que sucede dentro de ella. Triunfadores del deporte. Esta noche en CNN.
Somos CNN
México.
Aprovecha este momento para escapar al lugar que quisieras visitar algún día.
Tánger, Marruecos. A Tánger la encuentras en la punta norte de Marruecos, a corta distancia por ferry de la costa sur de España. Es una de las ciudades más excepcionales y multiculturales de todo el norte de África. Su arquitectura, moda y cocina son exclusivamente marroquíes, pero con influencias islámicas, subsaharianas y moras. Uno de los principales atractivos de Tánger es la Gran Plaza Soko, donde convergen la vieja ciudad y la nueva. Uno de los puntos más panorámicos es la antigua Medina Árabe, el corazón histórico de la ciudad. Es un laberinto de callejones repletos de tiendas de especias y restaurantes. Todo el encanto de Tánger lo espera en sus próximos destinos.
Y ahora regresamos a nuestra programación.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our viewers around the world. I'm Amra Walker.
And I'm George Howell. Let's update you on the breaking news we're covering, the terror attacks in France. It was a night of pure panic there. Now people across France are facing a national state of emergency after a series of highly coordinated attacks rocked the capital city. At least 153 people were killed in 6 different locations, including the country's national sports stadium.
Now, the deadliest assault was at the Bataclan Concert Hall, where 112 lives were brutally taken. Witnesses say the gunman entered the crowded theater during a concert and shot at them for at least 10 minutes. Paris officials say 8 attackers are dead, 7 of them in suicide blasts. No group has yet claimed responsibility, but President Francois Hollande vows France will be ruthless in its response. We want to give you a sense of exactly where all of this happened in Paris, and CNN's Tom Foreman has an overview.
All of these attacks took place north of the traditional tourist areas in Paris, along the Champs-Élysées, Notre Dame, that sort of thing. And the first one over here, when we talk about the Bataclan theater attack, this was really quite a short distance from the old Charlie Hebdo offices, as you can see. The Bataclan theater holds about 1,000 people, maybe a little bit more. It is a structure that would be considered a medium-sized venue. And shortly before the concert began, the bass player for the band, this American band from California, tweeted out this photograph of the venue inside there. So you get a little sense of what it was like. From the street level, you can see that most of the buildings around it are a little bit taller than the theater itself, and you can see some of the view there on the street where, of course, many of the victims came out as they tried to flee, and then later on as they tried to triage people, see who was hurt and who had been killed. As we move further, not terribly far away, a short car ride and not a bad walk even, you get to this restaurant Le Petit Cambodge. This is a popular restaurant in the area. It is in some tourist guidebooks. It's not really a tourist site very much, more of a local site, but it would be very crowded because it's very popular with young people there, Cambodian food being offered here, in also a very densely populated neighborhood here in the 10th arrondissement, or neighborhood or district of Paris, as they would call it. And then if we move on to the stadium, you're getting much further north here, but you're also getting to a much, much bigger crowd. It's a modern stadium, had an event underway, the soccer match, 80,000 people at this stadium. And this is where we know there was a suicide bomber, according to the authorities. Why that suicide bomber did not find the opportunity to strike more people, we don't know. It is a good thing that they did not, but that will be one of the many things they try to sort out as authorities go over this geography of where the attackers came from, how they wound up where they did, and how they staged these attacks.
But again, 6 different locations and seemingly, within the same window of time. So investigators are certainly looking into this. This is not something that, a couple of guys came up with over the internet. It seems like it was coordinated and planned.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely highly coordinated. Well, we do have a story that's a bit more on a positive note, and one witness to the attacks says his cell phone actually saved his life.
That man, who is going by the name Sylvester, says that his phone blocked shrapnel as he crossed the street near the Stade de France. Listen.
Le temps qu'il raccroche, je traversais et directement, boum, ça a explosé devant moi.
The time he took to hang up, I was crossing the street and straight away, boom, it exploded right in front of me. Everything was blown to bits and I felt stuff flying around and I left. I fell and then I got back up. And that's when you guys saw me. You were already there. So this is the cell phone that took the hit. It's what saved me. Otherwise my head would have been blown to bits.
C'est là que vous m'avez vu aussi, là-bas vous étiez déjà...
Paris journalist Julian Pierce was inside the Bataclan concert hall during the attack.
And he spoke to Anderson Cooper about what he saw.
The show was about to end. The band Eagles of Death Metal was playing for almost an hour. And suddenly we heard gunshots coming behind us. And when I looked back, I saw at least 2 men, unmasked men. Maybe there were 3, but in the confusion I can't tell you exactly, but they were holding assault rifles, AK-47, I'm sure about it, Kalashnikov, and they were firing randomly to the crowd. And so obviously we all lie down on the floor to not get hurt, and it was a huge panic, and the terrorists shot at us for like 10 to 15 minutes. It was a bloodbath, and they shot at us and they reloaded the guns several times, multiple times, and it's actually what I escaped because they reloaded. Basically, I just waited for the time they reloaded to run, to climb the scene and to hide behind it. And I tried to help a few people around me, and it was shocking. I mean, it was panicking, huge panic, and so they shot at us for 10 to 15 minutes. It was long. It was very, very long. And the Bataclan is not a huge concert room. It's about 1,000 people can gather in it. But it was overcrowded. I mean, there were no empty rooms. It was sold out, basically. So it was easy for them.
So 2 to 3 men, and CNN has now confirmed that 2 gunmen were killed, and again, this is the earliest report, but we are being told that 2 gunmen were killed inside the theater. You're saying you saw 2, possibly 3 gunmen with AK-47 style long rifles shooting into the crowd, and this went on for 10 to 15 minutes? Were they standing and shooting? Were they moving around?
They were not moving, actually. They were just standing at the back of the scene, at the back of the crowd, and they were just shooting on the floor because everybody was on the floor. And I've seen one of the guys, very young, actually. He was like 18 years old, 19 years old, maximum, 20 maximum. And he was executing people on the floor. The person around him, he was holding his assault rifle towards the people down, and he was shooting on people. So they were not moving, actually. They were just standing at the back of the concert room and shooting at us like if we were birds.
Were they saying anything?
I haven't heard anything about them. I haven't heard Allah Akbar or something like this. I have some friends who escaped who heard them talking about Iraq and Syria, but I'm not quite sure about it. But I haven't heard anything but the screaming of the people.
The gunmen, do you remember what they were wearing? Did they have heavy clothing? I mean, there had been some concern about possible suicide vests or anything like that. Did you see anything?
Not from what I've seen. They were wearing like a jogging, but black stuff. I mean, they were all wearing black, but no tactical vest, no nothing like this. They were just holding AK-47, that's all. I haven't seen grenades, I haven't seen bombs or whatever, but it happened so fast. I mean, we were just trying to hide and save our lives. So I looked to one guy for a few times, and the one I described to you, very young, and he wasn't wearing tactical stuff. He was just a random guy. I mean, I could have met him a few minutes before and never thought he was a terrorist.
Yeah, I know you said your friends said they heard some people speaking. Do you know what language they were speaking? Were they speaking French?
I believe so. I believe so because the friends I spoke to said to me they were talking French between them. So I believe they were speaking French. I don't know if they are French, but they were speaking French.
Julian, when you went to the concert, was there metal detectors or anything when you walked in? Were you searched by security?
Nothing. We haven't been searched, body search, nothing. I mean, I just showed my ticket
They flashed it, and that's it. I mean, they didn't look in my bag. They didn't look at nothing. Security was very poor, honestly.
And so basically, I mean, the scene you're describing is one where basically everybody was laying down on the floor, and for the course of 10 or 15 minutes, these people were just going around shooting people, executing them, point blank.
Yeah, that's the scene. That's what happened. And hopefully I was on the front of I was at the front of the scene, so I was some kind of protected by the bullet. And but everybody was panicking. Everybody was trying to escape. So everybody was walking on bodies to try to climb on the scene to get protection. And so I said to the people around me just to calm down and to hide, stay dead basically. And we waited. We waited for the time they reloaded the gun to climb the scene and to hide ourselves in a small room on the right of the scene. But unfortunately, there were no escapes in that room. It was just a closed room, so we were trapped. So we waited for 5 minutes. They stopped shooting, and they reloaded again, and we ran on the scene to find an exit. And it's when I found an exit that I saw the body of a young girl who was shot twice in the leg. She was bleeding very badly, and I grabbed her and I put her on my back, and we ran together for in the streets for 200 or 300 meters. And I found a cab, and I stopped the cab, and I said to the taxi driver, well, go to the hospital with her. But she was bleeding so badly, I don't know if she makes it. I don't know if she's still alive.
She's alive.
A harrowing account of a very narrow escape. A man who escaped and also tried to save a life in the process.
And he doesn't know at this point. You know, there's so many wounded that are in the hospitals. And the thing about this situation at the Bataclan, I mean, we've heard about the suicide bombings, of course, but in this case, the gunman went into the building. There were no masks, and many of our experts indicate, you know, that is a sign that they had no intention of leaving that situation alive. So that's certainly part of the investigation.
Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more on the Paris attacks when we return.
Después de años de tensiones sociales, ¿ha mejorado la situación? ¿Cómo podemos evitar que empeore? CNN analiza la diversidad y su realidad en Estados Unidos. Una semana de cobertura en televisión y en línea. ¿Cuál es la realidad sobre la desigualdad, la discriminación y el sueño americano? Diversidad y realidad en Estados Unidos a partir del 17 de noviembre en CNN y cnnespañol.com.
5 años de invitados extraordinarios son una magnífica razón para celebrar. Visita cnnespañol.com/cala. Selecciona tu entrevista favorita y revive las 5 ganadoras en nuestro especial el 27 de noviembre. Celebra con nosotros nuestro 5º aniversario. Vota ya.
Actualidad en vivo, de lunes a viernes, en CNN. Aprovecha este momento para escapar al lugar que quisieras visitar algún día.
Tánger, Marruecos. A Tánger la encuentras en la punta norte de Marruecos, a corta distancia por ferry de la costa sur de España. Es una de las ciudades más excepcionales y multiculturales de todo el norte de África. Su arquitectura, moda y cocina son exclusivamente marroquíes, pero con influencias islámicas, subsaharianas y moras. Uno de los principales atractivos de Tánger es la Gran Plaza Soko, donde convergen la vieja ciudad y la nueva. Uno de los puntos más panorámicos es la antigua Medina Árabe, el corazón histórico de la ciudad. Es un laberinto de callejones repletos de tiendas, de especies y restaurantes. Todo el encanto de Tánger lo espera en sus próximos destinos.
Y ahora regresamos a nuestra programación.
Saludos, esta es la noticia más destacada ahora. Los ataques terroristas de este viernes en París fueron ejecutados en 6 puntos de la ciudad, según lo informó el fiscal de París, François Molins. Los objetivos fueron un teatro, al menos 2 restaurantes y el Estadio de Francia situado al norte de París. Según la fiscalía, 8 atacantes fueron abatidos y 7 de ellos portaban bombas adheridas a sus cuerpos. La serie de atentados terroristas en la capital francesa deja al menos 153 víctimas, 112 de ellas en el Teatro Bataclan, donde se celebraba un concierto. Allí, y de acuerdo con varios testigos, los terroristas dispararon indiscriminadamente contra los asistentes hasta que las unidades antimotines de la policía los neutralizaron. El presidente François Hollande declaró el estado de emergencia en toda Francia y ordenó el cierre de las fronteras. Seguimos atentos al desarrollo de esta noticia. Soy Michael Roa News en CNN.
Deadly, coordinated, and unprecedented shootings and suicide blasts in and around Paris have shocked the world, killing at least 153 people. Here's what we know at this hour. French authorities say that terrorists targeted multiple locations, 6 locations, including restaurants and a sports stadium. All soft targets. You're looking at the scene outside the deadliest attack, a concert hall where at least 112 people were killed.
The Paris prosecutor says 8 attackers are dead, some of them in suicide bomb blasts. Police shot and killed another attacker. For the latest from Paris, let's go to senior international correspondent Fred Plagin, who is standing by live. And Fred, if you could just give us a sense of what the people are feeling. I'd imagine there's a sense of vulnerability and fear, especially not knowing for sure if there are more attackers out there.
Vulnerability, concern, I would say fear, also of course a lot of sadness as well. It's actually interesting because one of the people who was inside that building as the siege was taking place, as these hostage takers were in there, was actually just here a couple of minutes ago, and I managed to speak to him. His name was Denis Plot, and he said that when all of this started happening, he was actually dancing at this rock concert that was going on, Amra, and then all of a sudden he heard the shots started firing, and he and a couple of other people managed to save themselves into a smaller room where they then were for several hours before all of this ended. And he just described the fear that he had, also of course that many of the other people felt as all of this was going on. He said he didn't hear anything except the fire of automatic weapons and people screaming inside that theater. So certainly something that is a very traumatizing thing. Not only, of course, for the people who had to go through all of this, but of course also for the city as a whole. There's many people who are very concerned at this point. As you said, it's not clear whether or not all of the attackers who were involved in all of this are actually have actually been killed, or whether or not there might still be some of them at large, or whether or not there is a larger network that is behind all this. As you said, so far we know that 8 attackers have been killed. 4 of them were killed at the theater where the rock concert was going on. And then, of course, there were also the suicide attacks that happened near the stadium in Saint-Denis. So this is really something that's looking to many people like quite a complex, coordinated operation. And so they want to know whether or not some of the people who might be behind this operation are, in fact, still at large, Amra.
So, I guess the big question is, what happens next in terms of, France's response on the security front and also in its reaction to this. You have the French President Hollande meeting with the Defense Council right now as we speak. What's the sense that you're getting in terms of what comes in the next few days and weeks ahead?
Well, I mean, the French president also has already said that there's just going to be a very forceful response, but at the same time, of course, the investigation is moving forward as well. We did hear a little bit from the prosecutor who's in charge of all of this, saying that they are moving forward with their investigation, saying that they already know that there have been 6 sites that were targeted by these attackers, and we also know that they do plan to hold a press conference later today where we hope to learn more about how this investigation is progressing and whether or not they have any more information as to who might be behind all of this. Now, at the same time, there is already a response as far as the security is concerned. Security has been beefed up all around Paris, of course at vulnerable points like airports specifically, and also army units have been deployed here as well, some 1,500 soldiers that are now also patrolling the streets here of Paris as well. So on the one hand, you want to give people confidence back that the security forces here are in charge of the situation or in command of the situation. You want to create create an environment where people are willing and are comfortable with going out. But at the same time, of course, the investigation itself is something that does have a top priority, and François Hollande already said in his speech yesterday, in his remarks to this nation, that there would be a very forceful response once the French find out who was behind this.
Yeah, some challenging times ahead and a lot of soul searching as well. Fred Pleitgen with the very latest from Paris. Thanks so much, Fred.
Well, the day after this attack in France, and that country is grieving together.
We'll show you newspaper headlines from across the country as our special coverage continues.
A continuación, nuestros mensajes publicitarios. El domingo.
No he venido a hablar de Cuba.
En una producción original, CNN te lleva a un viaje con Fidel.
Sí, pero ya ahorita tengo que ir.
Como jamás se había visto.
Yo me quedé sorprendido.
Y luego, Juan Carlos López te lleva a fondo en una hora de análisis para poner en perspectiva la vida y carrera política de Fidel Castro, con una edición especial de Choque de Opiniones, el domingo, en CNN. En Estados Unidos, ¿cuál es la realidad sobre la desigualdad, la discriminación y el sueño americano? CNN analiza diversidad y realidad a partir del 17 de noviembre en CNN y cnnespañol.com. Aprovecha este momento para escapar al lugar que quisieras visitar algún día.
Tánger, Marruecos. A Tánger la encuentras en la punta norte de Marruecos, a corta distancia por ferry de la costa sur de España. Es una de las ciudades más excepcionales y multiculturales de todo el norte de África. Su arquitectura, moda y cocina son exclusivamente marroquíes, pero con influencias islámicas, subsaharianas y moras. Uno de los principales atractivos de Tánger es la Gran Plaza Soko, donde convergen la vieja ciudad y la nueva. Uno de los puntos más panorámicos es la antigua Medina Árabe, el corazón histórico de la ciudad. Es un laberinto de callejones repletos de tiendas, de especies y restaurantes. Todo el encanto de Tánger lo espera en sus próximos destinos.
A través de los años hemos mantenido el compromiso de presentarte todas las caras de la noticia y así puedas apreciar mejor el panorama mundial.
De lunes a viernes en CNN.
En este programa nos acercamos a asuntos que pueden ser complejos, polémicos, espinosos por momentos. Hemos podido conversar con muchas personas que en su momento han sido clave. Estamos frente a realidades muy complejas, muy intensas, efervescentes. Los invito a escuchar, ver y compartir ideas, puntos de vista, debates.
Aristegui, de lunes a viernes en CNN. Presentado por Cadillac.
Nosotros intentamos contar lo que se escurre entre los titulares.
Encuentro.
Lo más importante para mí ha sido la calle. Estar con la gente en la calle, oír lo que hablan, oír cómo lo dicen.
Encuentro, de lunes a viernes en CNN.
La magia empieza aquí, donde el diálogo se convierte en arte.
Es la oportunidad de descubrir una historia de vida diferente.
Y el resultado siempre te sorprenderá. Cala, de lunes a viernes en CNN.
Welcome back, everyone. France is waking up to unprecedented horror. The French president right now evaluating what to do next after more than 150 people were killed in a series of coordinated attacks.
An attack at a concert venue. It started like this image you see here with the band performing. It ended in a terrible bloodbath. Gunmen killed at least 112 people. Some of the survivors were held hostage for hours.
And at France's National Stadium, 3 blasts unnerved football fans. You can see it in the photo here. 4 people were killed outside the venue.
That wasn't all. At least 4 other locations in that city were attacked by gunmen. Officials say 8 of the attackers are dead, 7 of whom blew themselves up. No one has claimed responsibility yet. The devastation of the attacks is spread across the front pages of French daily newspapers. Among the headlines, carnage in Paris. and war in the center of Paris.
The word horror is on at least 3 of the papers, and the cover of the Parisien reads, "This time, it's war."
And right now on Twitter, Pray for Paris is one of the top hashtags worldwide.
And looking at our Twitter heat map, you can see that the prayers are coming in from every continent. About 4,000 tweets a minute are using the hashtag. Many people saying they are heartbroken for France and thinking of the victims and their families. And here are some of the images people are tweeting. Pray for Paris with the Eiffel Tower in the message is being widely tweeted, as is this peace symbol with the Eiffel Tower in the center.
Many people are posting photos of landmarks around the world lit up in the tricolore, the French colors. This person writes, "When the lights of a city are turned off, the other cities turn on their lights for support." And it's not just Pray for Paris that is a common sentiment. There's also Cry for Paris.
Social media is also helping friends and family connect in the aftermath of the Paris attacks. People around the city have been able to let their loved ones know that they are okay through Facebook's Safety Check. The tool was launched in 2014 to help users connect during disasters.
And if you're looking for the status of a loved one who might be in Paris, just head to the Safety Check page on your Facebook account. The page lists friends who last checked in around the city and gives a running tally of who's marked as safe. We thank you for watching us this hour. Our continuing coverage on the terror attacks. We'll be back after the break.
I'm Amara Walker. Thanks for watching.
A continuación, nuestros mensajes publicitarios.